do a summer school component before school here in August, and that,
So we did they did like a, what was the word, like a fitness camp basically to qualify for those hours. We were not able to acquire any staff that were interested in running the booster coming in back to school. So we're hoping next year, if we get after that early enough, that we can find and hire and have staff in place to do something with that. So, in addition to with summer school, we had swim lessons that just finished up. They ran from June 6th through August 3rd, so a number of different categories there, different age groups. The each class went for 3 days, so we had 4 sessions. 3 classes within each, so there were 273 signups for that. Not necessarily 273 kids that participated, because some might have started at level 1 and went to level 2 in the next session, but 273 signups, so good numbers there as well, and something again that we hope to grow, especially just the value of that program within our community. I was able to attend the law conference, July 26th through the 28th. I went to this last year too. Very well attended conference. It's open to superintendents across the state. Really the format of it is they bring in school attorneys from all the different firms that have a division that represents schools. And they divide up topics and take their specialty areas and just try to provide a pretty good booster going into the start of the year, update people on changes and different law changes. So they focus this year primarily on comprehensive school law, harassment compliance, especially in terms of Title IX. They spent a lot of time talking about DPI regulatory authority, especially with the oversight that they've had over expulsions across the state the last couple of years. So talking about how if there's situations where an expulsion is necessary, the things that you need to be well aware of and pay special attention to, and make sure you've got all of your paperwork in order and notifications especially in order. Labor and employment law, and then they end with a roundtable session where, to me, that's a pretty valuable session where you get a lot of different administrators that ask different questions, so you get a good feel on what the important topics are across the state. You get a pretty good feel for that. So definitely a jam-packed couple of days, an evening and then a couple of days, but definitely worthwhile. Wanted to provide a staffing update as well. So I think I presented these numbers to the board as we've come through, but we've got 12 new teachers, new certified staff. I shouldn't say they're all teachers, but 12 new certified staff coming in this year. We've got 9 shifts in position, 1 new paraprofessional, and then we added 2 additional members to the administrative team. Our athletic director, and then Mark Schomer, who's with us, I believe for his first full board meeting tonight, so welcome, Mark. So we also added quite a few last year. So going through and look at the numbers, we have 12% of our teaching staff currently, or our certified staff currently, are in their first year in our district, and that's 31% of our staff are in their first 3 years in the district. So we're starting to see this shift where we know we've got people retiring, and we expected this bubble to come through, but there's a lot of different opportunities. And when we look at the 9 shifts, that's just this year, people shifting internally to different positions. When you have turnover, and especially in terms of retirement, it does give people the opportunity to move into positions that they're excited about, and we see some of that happening. So it definitely changes some of the focus when you talked about back to school planning and some of the some of the professional development that's going to be needed, but that's definitely a pretty good shift in staffing patterns over the past couple of years for us. Strategic planning update, just very briefly. I know you're going to see this in some of the staff reports tonight too. Next month, I will bring the strategic planning calendar to the board, and then we'll also have the district scorecard, which the other scorecards are all built off of. So October, you will see the school report cards come in, but that's sort of the timeline to expect with closing out the old cards and bringing in the new ones for this year and the goal planning. And I know we talked about some of the information from our school perception survey. You'll see a lot of that represented in there, so you'll get that there as well. Retirement to announce, a late retirement to announce. So you'll see in our consent agenda tonight, Jackie Dorian has turned in her letter of retirement. So Jackie's got 34 years in the profession, 15 of which right here in Tomahawk. She is our human resources and payroll specialist. We are currently lining up interviews for replacement, hoping to have some overlap and some training. We can tap into the wealth of knowledge that she has in that area. But we will be making a transition, this year early on with her position. So we wish her obviously very well and the best of luck in retirement and everything that she's going to take on, and she will definitely be missed in our district. And then a few thank yous that I want to throw out there, some donations that you'll see in the consent agenda too. The elementary PTO group disbanded and donated what was left in their bank account to go against playground equipment. I know Guy has had this in his staff report too, talking about the new playground equipment. So there's $27,971.19. So we thank them for that donation for that purpose. PCA recently donated $250 to our FCCLA club, and Rondelay Ranch also donated $2,500 to FCCLA for some work that they did and help cleaning up after one of the 4th of July events. And then I also want to thank Kinship for their upcoming back to school. They always organize a school supply drive and give out backpacks and have a picnic for everybody, and that's an annual thing for them. Definitely appreciated by many in our community, I know, and definitely a lot of help there. So, any questions on any of those topics tonight?
Any questions for Wendell?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the consent agenda items. We have a few. Approve the minutes from the regular meeting on July 11th, 2023. Approve the minutes from the closed session of the regular meeting on July 11th, 2023. Approve the invoices from July 8th through August 4th, 2023. Then there's employment contract adjustments, which are listed there, and finally donations. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion, a second to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Staff reports. Guy?
Yes, for the elementary, I gave you a list or some of the things that we've been working on. The one thing I didn't have a lot of information on when I typed this out was the explicit instruction. We had that meeting today at noon, and we worked on a monthly focus area from the Anita Archer work that we put in last year on explicit instruction. I feel like we have a good plan moving forward. We worked on with April Schofield from CISA 9. We have some internal coaches, and we won't have the sessions that we ran last year with Anita, but we do have the work focus that will continue each month with the support that the teachers will get from our internal coaches, plus the support that we have from April from CISA 9. So I included that. Everything else is just some work that we're working on as we get ready for back to school. I want to thank Arland and his crew because the building is looking really good. I feel like they did some huge work moving some things around, getting ready for Linda Van Stridon to move into her new position. I feel like we have a good plan with that, and combining that with the Hawaii room. So I feel like we're really in a good spot getting ready for the new school year. Is there any questions on my report?
Any questions for Guy?
Okay, I noticed the handbook too. The handbook was something, when I looked at it, it looks like what was connected to the board report wasn't the exact handbook that we have. I did some work this last week. Colleen was nice enough to help me out with some bookmarking. Tried to make it a little bit more consistent. I know Mr. Hughesby mentioned that might be something that we should look at for this new year. So I think we have some consistency between the handbooks, and so I feel good about that work too.
Thank you.
I'd like to make one comment. The handbook, maybe at the bottom, use a footnote like they do in the middle school and high school where it says back to table of contents so we can
It is
go
in
back.
that.
Is
Colleen
it in
helped
there
me with
now?
that.
Okay, because I couldn't, that
Yeah.
was painful.
The one that's connected here is not the.
okay, got it.
Will we get updated?
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
Okay, so it is right now, or it will be?
It should be.
It's
Okay.
on the website, but I noticed that the one on the website is not what was connected to the board report.
Okay.
So the most current
Because I-
version
The
is
most
on the
current
website.
version is on the website.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, middle school?
Okay, what I'm gonna highlight in my board report actually has to do with Sherry and Guy as well. It's something that we've been working on collaboratively now for about 4 to 5 months. It's under the community and communication part of the board report, and it's our work that we've been doing with the Youth Justice Collaborative Committee of Lincoln County. And basically, it's been kind of a very good process because we're actually in a more collaborative, I would say, terms with some of the Lincoln County agencies that sometimes we don't really get as much support from as we need to. So one of the initiatives that they wanted to do was kind of look at the county's truancy processes for both Merrill and Tomahawk, and make sure that we're not only, following the procedures of what we have to do, but trying to add another step before a situation or a case would go to, before the judge. So basically, we've been meeting, and this all kind of stemmed from Merrill. They have a little bit more truancy issues than we do, but they had looked at some processes that other schools were doing, namely in Maritime County, with all of the school districts that are in there. And they came up with this kind of truancy plan that we've kind of tweaked and made it our own. So we will talk more about this later. We have another meeting coming up in about a week that we're gonna go back and kind of start finalizing some stuff. So I don't wanna get into too much detail, but basically, the first 2 levels of the plan are stuff that we've been doing, and we following the state statute and stuff that we've been doing forever. But the new part is this AMC, which is an Attendance Matters Committee. And I know Sherry was gonna kind of speak to this part of it, but basically there's another level that's coming into play, so.
Sure, so when we get through our first 2 levels at, in our district, then it will go to the Attendance Matters Committee, the AMC, which is comprised of building people, so we would be involved, guys, Stacy and I, Officer Sousa. Judge Telesti has graciously offered to be our judge and sit in. We have North Central Health Care, we'll have a representative from there, Social Services. And then they asked for a community member, and we have ideas on that and have reached out. We haven't finalized 100% those pieces yet, but we will in the next month for sure. So when we get to that point with the student will come in, they'll sit in front of that committee. That committee will ask some guiding questions, try to get to root causes, what's going on with your tenants, why aren't you, able to be to school, and try to figure out some solutions. And then they'll be able to mandate some things with the student, and if we don't see any improvements, which hopefully we will with this next layer, then we would have to obviously proceed with state statute and move on.
But you're giving them the opportunity to succeed or fail, it's in their
And
hands.
be
Yes.
proactive.
Right.
Like, the main part of this is trying to be proactive and come up with solutions and interventions before it would get to the court.
I agree.
And that, like Sherry had mentioned, the nice thing about it is North Central Healthcare has committed to, being a part of this. Social Services is committed to being a part of it. So it's again, incorporating some of those agencies that we don't necessarily,
We haven't really been able to
Yeah.
tap into.
and they're coming here to us. This will all happen here in our building. So that'll be a great thing as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we'll be talking more about that, but, again, kind of something that has, and I don't know if Guy, if you wanna add anything
Well,
with
the
it as well.
only thing that I would add is at the elementary level, because of the age groups that I work with, that that so much of their attendance is based on what the parents, or what's happening with the parents, that it wouldn't just be the student that we bring in for these meetings, the parents would have to be a huge component of that.
Okay.
Because we're not just gonna have this, say, a first grade student in front of this whole committee, that would be too much.
But what about the middle and high school then?
Student.
Just the
And
student?
part of
Just
the,
student or student and parent?
process of this is there has to be, there's meetings and stuff with us as attendance officers before with the parents, and they would have to get prior approval. So there's like a whole consent form that parents would have to sign to allow this to even happen.
Okay.
But part of this, with the focus of this being proactive, Sherry and I have talked about, and Guy as well, is part of just our messaging of having proactive attendance messaging. So that's one of the areas we want to focus on. This year is trying to talk about the importance of regular attendance and the benefits academically, socially, emotionally, all of that stuff. How that plays into a student's success in school. So that's one of our focuses this year as well.
Okay, but can a parent or guardian attend if the student wanted them there?
Honestly, we don't know yet. We haven't gotten to the point where they've actually put the template together of how these are gonna run.
Okay,
Part of that has to have Judge Telusty, and these people play into that. So one of the forms that's blank on our form right now is the template of how this is all gonna run.
okay,
This is all just kind of organizing at this point, so,
okay.
but my guess is yes. But I don't
Good-
know.
good
Just how you say no.
Another question,
Sure.
because we have students in 2 counties, it doesn't matter, these students all students, because they're in the school district in our
Yes,
Lincoln
because
County?
even if a student resides in Oneida County, if we, like in our past practice, they would go, if it got to a truancy.
They still go to
they
Lincoln
still go to
County?
Judge Sullivan.
Okay, because of the school being in Lincoln County.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we'll keep you informed, and next week we have another meeting, yeah, so.
Okay. Any other questions for the board? Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Two things that I wanted to highlight again with the board is, these are kind of things that I bring back to each summer, because I think it's dealing with the dual credit report out, one of the data points from dual credit, as well as our career and technical education incentive grant reimbursements. And so the reason why I like to bring those back to you as a board is because I think they represent a lot of the work that's gone into preparing students for that college career readiness component. And it's that culminating factor, the goal that we want to see for our students. So the first one you can see there is the report out on the financial savings that comes from dual credits from Nicolay this past school year, which is just shy of $26,000 that students have saved in tuition with all their credits that they've earned. The one thing that I'm working on right now is, because we work with multiple institutions, trying to get that data collected all at the same time from NTC, because we have students with dual credit classes there. We have students that do things, for example, like Project Lead the Way classes, that gets a little hard to measure what their tuition savings would be, but I think it's one of the benefits that a parent and student can also see from taking those college classes. Obviously, the knowledge is a key part of that, but that financial benefit is another component of why we want to see students having those opportunities and supported. So that was one measurement. The other one is the Career Technical Incentive Grant. So just a short synopsis on that for you. That's a grant for $6.5 million has been awarded to the Department of Workforce Development, where they work with industry, post-secondary institutions to develop what they would consider high priority industry certificates for students to obtain. So through that grant alone, you over the course of a student's career, you keep track of the certificates that they're earning. And then in their graduating year, we submit those to the DWD for reimbursement. So you can see this year it was just shy of $29,700 came back to the school district for those credentials earned. And so that money we've been continuously using to reinvest back into our career and technical education programs. And those two components, just to kind of paint that big picture for you, are part of our Redefining Ready indicators. So you'll see more and more of those being added onto our strategic plan in detail to highlight the work that's being done and make sure that we get more resources into those efforts by our staff members to create courses and curriculum revisions to embed these things into our pathways for students. So I always like to kind of point that out to you as a board, that through your legislative work as a school board, I would recommend that you continue to support the Career Technical Incentive Grant with our legislators, because of the benefit that we're seeing for our students, and that those dollars that come back for us to reinvest right back into their programs for opportunities. So,
Good.
any questions from the board?
Any questions for Ryan?
No.
Thank you. Okay, Wendy?
I didn't know if it was me or Mark next. So just some highlights out of my board report, some of the things that we're working on, connecting with some community engagement opportunities that we've heard parents, community members asking for, so we're gonna try offering at least once per quarter, at all the different grade levels, so we have some, people come in to talk about some AODA issues, resiliency, some parent supports and strategies at the different age levels, just to give some parents some tools and strategies. We're setting up some counselors to come in and work on some tips on that. We're bringing back the pancake man guy who was here a while ago. Linda Van Stridonk and I worked together with Guy to get that set up, so that's gonna be coming in. Then we're gonna have the literacy and numeracy night in the spring, and then, we also are gonna have, a counselor when we do the AODA night. We're gonna have, Mr. Flynn and our assistant principals and Officer Sousa talk about the impacts both academically, co-curricular wise, and then legal impactfulness of their actions, so that they can consider that prior to the speaker, so that due to the number of pre-expulsions and concerns that we've seen coming up, we want to make sure that we can get parents some resources to help them know what they're facing and what to look for. We want to set up the in plain sight bedroom. I don't know if you guys have seen that before, so that it shows parents where kids can hide things. Kids aren't welcome that night, because we don't want to give them ideas, but they set it up for parents to go through, so they can kind of look and see on things just to watch for with kids. And then some opportunities, again, for that grit and resilience, and if your child's struggling with this at the different age levels, what are some ideas and strategies? Just to give tools. We might get 5 people, we might get 100, but we want to provide those opportunities. So we got a grant through Aspirus to help compensate our staff for providing those opportunities, and as well as hire those speakers to come in. We're also going to offer a Love and Logic training for some parents too, or community members, anybody that wants to sign up for that. So we've got some pretty good things going there to provide just some little outreach. Mr. Quisenberry talked earlier about new staff and retaining them. We have our new special ed teachers also participating in a DPI program that's new this year for attracting and retaining special ed staff. So they have throughout the year a bunch of both in-person and after-school training that we get some compensation to cover the sub-costs for that as well, so that it's not a burden on the district, but just to give them the skills so that they understand what their expectations are and can better meet those needs. So, and then the last thing is just update on our SEL committee. You know, last time we kind of finished our process. We're waiting to see where that positivity project falls out. You know, they said around October, November to see where it's at and that what works clearinghouse, and then we'll take that information if it does meet the requirements, and then we'll make that decision from there. So we're kind of on hold with that as we agree upon with our committee. So we still have our current curriculum in place for the rest of this year, so we're not in a big rush.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, questions?
Lenny, do you have any dates on those nights coming up in the fall? Just
We are still finalizing some of them. The Pancake Man isn't until the spring. I'm still waiting back. I'm waiting back to hear from Lincoln County on the specific dates for the in-plain site and the parent workshops. And then Amanda Duncan and the new counselor at the middle school are collaborating to set up the Love and Logic dates. So it's still they will be by the time school gets out, so we want to get those out, you know, right away at the beginning of the year, so people get them on their calendar, but we're working with those other agencies to like firm some of those up, so a lot of cogs in the wheels to align them.
Okay.
So, any other questions?
Anything else?
When will you be presenting at the new leader training and the Wisconsin Council of Administrators?
I am presenting at WCAS on the 21st of September, and for the new leaders for DPI next week on the 13th, I think.
Okay, good for you.
Yeah, very good.
I did it last year and they asked me back, so I must not have been.
Well, that's a good sign.
So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, Eric?
So you guys read the report. A lot of looking right now, and that's really the best way to describe it. It's looking, talking to teachers, looking at data, trying to figure out what the trends are, where we want to take PD this year that we can best serve our students as we move forward. A lot of planning for the August 22nd Data Day, or Academic Review Day as I like to call it. We're going to bring in 4 main content areas of math, English, science, and social studies, and basically do a deep dive into their state assessments, what they expect, the rigor of the assessments, so the teachers can better align their assessments and what they bring in the classroom to what the state is actually expecting. That's kind of the launch of the next series of PD that's gonna be coming out over the course of this year and the next couple of years. The other piece that takes a large portion right now is the bill that passed the state legislatures regarding literacy. Right now it's in anticipation stage because we're literally waiting to see what the state comes out with with their specific expectations now. That's all we can do is play guessing games, which never turns out well for anybody. So we're just gathering all the information we can, getting a good hold of everything, and then looking to move forward once we find out more information. Questions?
Okay. Just one more. Welcome, first of all.
Thanks.
Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
I'm not very good with acronyms and stuff,
Okay.
so I think I know what
And
you're
you're in
saying.
education, that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I know what it is, but what's PD again?
Professional development.
Okay, I was guessed right, thank you.
PD, PL, professional learning.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Brent, kind of for a high level, for those people that came to join the meeting, can you explain just a summary of what's happening with literacy?
Oh, sure.
Just so that everybody here who's in the room kind of is aware.
The state legislature's kind of made a big statement and basically said that they're now going to, in the very primary ages, and we're talking 4K, K1, 2, maybe, they're going to start telling us exactly what we have to do. And that's beyond standards. They've always told us standards. We've always had to follow the standards. Well, we've had choice to follow the standards, but we've always chosen to follow the standards. But this time now they're saying you're not going to use this assessment, you're going to use one of these select assessments. These are the approved programs that we're going to allow to happen, and it's all based on reading. So it's not based on math, it's not based on any other content areas, it is specifically to reading. And it's really the first time the state's made that type of a poll, or this significant of one, so that's why we're kind of in the waiting game to see what happens. I was meeting with some specialists and some kindergarten teachers over the last couple days, and you can see their nervousness about it, and I get it. Within right, we're all a little nervous about it to see what it actually comes out to be. But if the state tells us that they want us to use this assessment, it's fine. It takes a decision off our plate. We know what we have to do, and we just kind of move forward. It's that sphere of influence piece. So we can control, and ultimately we control what's in front of us, and that's the kids. But we still have to meet the expectations of the state. We just don't know what they are
And
yet.
if my understanding is it's more phonics based.
Oh, very much so. Yes. Yeah, it is phonics, phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is actually even a little bit bigger than the phonics part because that's the part that gets left off a lot.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the AD report, I think, is in your notes there. Q4 finance report?
Okay, so we went through this in depth at the committee level yesterday and advanced this out, so I will highlight a few portions of it. First, just start out by saying as we close out, this fourth quarter, the district is in really good financial shape. So if you look at the first page of this, you'll see that in that narrative paragraph towards the bottom, first you can see where the vast majority in the graph of our revenues come from in local sources, but local and state primarily. But you'll see in there that we came out over the course of this year at 102.13%, higher than what we expected to in terms of our revenues. So for the fourth quarter alone, we were around 104.39%. So in good shape with our revenues, came in higher with our revenues than we anticipated we would. On the other side, the expenditures piece, if you flip the page and you first look at a couple of things, the highest areas in our expenditures are salaries, benefits, and purchase services. So those are the key areas where a lot of our money goes out to. And our salaries and benefits, if you look at page 4, the third bullet point at the top, what you'll see in Q4 is that we have additional pay periods that go through. So typically in a quarter you'd see 6 pay periods. In this quarter we see 10 because the way our contract works out, it includes pay periods for July and for August to close out teacher contracts. So that number is a little bit higher than what you would typically see. At the very bottom there, though, you see that our total expenditures for the year came in right around 5% less than what we anticipated. So our revenues came in higher than we anticipated, and our expenditures were less than we anticipated, which is always a good thing. On the very back page, you'll see that this is where we just show you where the money is pretty much housed. So we keep whatever we need to in our local checking account and to cover expenses, and in Tomahawk Community, or in Crossbridge Community Bank, thank you. But the vast majority of our funds we keep in the local government investment pool because we get a pretty significant interest rate. And over the course of the year, we earn somewhere in the tune of $400,000 to $450,000 in interest over that. So which definitely helps by keeping your money there. Quarter 4 was 5.9%. So you see we had $13,302,018.21, collecting 5.9% for a quarter, so a fiscal quarter. So definitely a good strategy to keep that in there. Any questions on the finance report?
Questions?
I think the report shows that the district is financially responsible, that we are not only, that we are managing on the expense side, and we're taking advantage of everything we can to bring revenue into the district to help offset taxpayer dollars. So I think the report demonstrates that.
Thank you, Dick. Anyone else? Okay, the next item is the capital projects list update. Any comment on that?
So along with that, and this is attached, you'll see I highlighted in green. Just before I go into this a little bit, we did talk in committee about revamping what this document looks like. So hopefully by the time our next quarterly report comes along, we will always attach this and update it, whether we've made additions to it or not, with each quarterly finance report. But these are all of the projects, again, that are listed that we would be able to use our Fund 46 dollars to address. We have not had to at this point because we've been able to use ESSER funds strategically to tackle a lot of these projects. And ESSER funds we found were much more geared towards one-time expenditures than they were trying to hire a staff member and senior funds run out at the end of this year. So we've been trying to utilize them as strategically as possible to tackle some of these projects. But you can see the ones highlighted in green are the ones that are either in progress or are set to be completed sometime early this fall. So we've got a couple of others that are not on the list but are currently current projects that are going. They're just not on the Fund 46 list. We have a window project that we have 80 windows across the front and middle school side of the building that are in the process of being replaced. Much needed replacements. Those windows, as you can see, I don't know how bad this one was recently replaced, but a lot of them, if you drive through the front of the building, you'll see that chalkiness on them. You'll see how there's gaps in them sometimes and a lot of airflow. So we're getting those replaced. An air handler motor control that has been malfunctioning for some time will be getting replaced. It's on order. It's set to be here very soon. We have some elementary and brick tuck pointing, which I believe is on the 46 list, but that will be taking place sometimes this fall. Again, we used to be able to line up contractors very quickly, very efficiently, and have them on board to get summer work done, and that's just not the case anymore. So some of these projects do extend into the fall a little more than we'd like them to. If you drove up and noticed, we have a pretty massive roof project. We have 8 different roofs that are going to replace this year, which is pretty common. We try to do as many as we can each summer to stay on top of it. Again, we have 37 different roofs across the footprint of our building, so staying on task with that is not always easy. And then there's some gym floor maintenance that has come due that will be taking place in the high school gym, where it's recommended every so often you have to sand it down to the bare floor, reline it, take care of any boards that need work and that sort of thing. So that'll be taking place after school gets out and lets out next year, just because of the disruption that would take place to the educational environment if we tackle that during the school year. But that currently is the capital projects list and the update. Not a lot of additions this time, just more of an update on it.
Okay. Any comments? All right, next item is up for approval of the change to the employee handbook. Any comment on those changes, Brenda?
It was brought up that, traditionally our staff workday was always 7:45 to 3:45, but that was never outlined anywhere explicitly. So in our staff handbook, if you look at this, I believe it's page 7.
Yep.
Make sure. Okay, so on page 7, there's a clause there that outlines that the work hours for each building will be dictated or approved by the board. So underneath that, we just added the language that outlined what our current day is. So that is what I'm bringing up for discussion and hopefully approval.
Okay, any discussion on it?
I have a comment.
Yeah,
If indeed we're staying with the start time of 7:50 for the elementary,
That's when we're releasing kids up, or that's when we're opening the doors.
okay. I just feel like having staff be there at 7:45 could cause some issues. You know, if somebody's late, running late, not dropping off kids at daycare, whatever, and having issues, and they don't get here by 7:45, you potentially could have kids standing outside the room. I think it should be 7:30 to 3:30. I don't think that, I just don't know, you know, that's such a close gap. That's my feelings.
okay.
But
I don't know if you guys want to consider that or look at it. It's obviously your call. I mean, you don't have to answer now,
Okay.
but maybe something.
You know, I know, you know, weather and stuff, and people with little kids, it is, and usually they'll let us know when they're running a little bit late, and we get them covered. I mean, we're not gonna have kids unattended. I mean, that, I do know that ends up being a pretty close time with 5 minutes, but, you know, that's what we tend to do. I mean, even, you know, people, some people are coming a distance, and this is Wisconsin in the winter, you know, we'll get a phone call, we get, you know, we try to make sure things are covered.
Okay. All right, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the time change in the handbook.
Used to be so moved.
Second?
Second, Baloo?
Motion and a second to make the change in the staff handbook as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
Motion carries. But you may want to, just as an observation, you may want to watch that. I think she makes a good point.
We'll
We
keep
may
an eye
have to-
on it, and
If it does become difficult, and winter is more difficult, it may be something that we need to
Yeah.
look at, you need to look at in the future.
we'll keep an eye on it.
Okay, all right,
And
thank
if
you.
it need be, I'll talk to Mr. Quisenberry about it.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, school year update, back to school staff letter?
So, just give the board an update on the upcoming work and events. And before I start, I just want to give kudos to the admin team for the work that they put in leading up to this school year with the considerations that I laid out earlier with a third of our staff being within the first 3 years. It's definitely something that when you talk about how you plan your professional development going into the beginning of a year and the tools that staff are gonna need, the changes that you make and the timelines for those changes obviously change not just in terms of new goals and things that we set forth, but in goals that we are 2 or 3 years into sometimes, or 4 years into, and how that, changes, I guess, your strategies moving forward. So I attached for the board the staff letter that will go out tomorrow to all of our staff that outlines all of the upcoming in-service days. I can run through them just briefly. So we will, the staff letter, like I said, will go out tomorrow. August 15th and 16th next week will be new staff orientation. Mark has done a really good job hitting the ground running, coming in, new to the district, connecting with the rest of the admin team to pull together and not just run our new staff, but to make it your own. And good job. He revamped this. He's made it looks completely different than what it's looked in the past. And there's actually, there's a little more professional development put in place for our mentors as well to coach them on how to be mentors throughout the school year and that sort of thing. So he's done a really nice job with that, and I think we all play a role in those couple of days, which is good too. So our staff are gonna get to meet, they're gonna get to see the building, they're gonna get to meet, obviously, their building principals, each other, myself, but it's gonna be a really good couple of days. Moving on from that, we get a little bit of a break there, and then staff in service will start the following week with the data retreat that was talked about earlier on the 22nd and 23rd. Some really good work planned for those 2 days, and not just work in collaboration. The afternoon is more of the actual work time, so some professional learning, and then the afternoon to plan it and make it come to fruition. So those will be a good couple of days, a little different than what we've done in the past with our data retreat, but I think it will be, it's right where we need to be, and there's some good work that's going to happen and some great learning that's going to happen over the course of those couple of days. Then the 24th, and then the 26th through the 31st. So the 24th, first of all, is our welcome back. That's our staff breakfast, 7:30 a.m. Obviously, you guys are all not only invited, encouraged, and welcome to attend. You always give a speech, so we'll have a microphone set up for you, Ron. And
7:30?
well, you don't have to talk at 7:30. That's just when people get. You want to get in line. All the good bacon will be gone if you wait too long.
Okay.
But Tahir does a great job of pulling together a breakfast for everybody that morning. It's always a good morning. So we will start with a little welcome back, and then we'll introduce our new staff. And then this year, we're encouraging everybody to wear their Hatchet colors, their Hatchet clothes, their Hatchet Pride clothes. And we're going to try to do an all-staff picture, which is something that we have not done quite some time. So weather permitting, we're going to have Dave there with his drone, and we'll try to put something together out on the football field. If we can't do that, we'll do it indoors somewhere. So we're looking forward to that, and then we're off and running with in-service after that. So then we come back the 26th through the 31st. We have those 4 straight days. One of the things that we heard annually from our staff is we need time in our rooms. Don't put us in meetings all day, every day, and professional learning all day, every day. So we really spent a lot of time trying to take care and caution to make sure that if there are meetings that day, that the afternoons are open and that sort of thing. So that was the trade-off too, and the deal that we made in bringing those 2 data retreat days and connecting them, is that we would provide as much time as possible. And I think our staff will be pretty pleased to see how much time, it's actually linked in there too for you guys to review, but how much time that they'll have to get their rooms ready, get themselves organized, and be able to hit the ground running once kids arrive later that week. So on the 1st, the open houses, which you heard earlier, the middle school open house will be on the 29th from 3:30 to 6, and then the elementary open house on the 28th. Then Friday, September 1st, is our annual orientation day for the upper grade level. So we will have pre-K through 6 that will all be in school. 6th grade will get their web day, and then grade 9 will be in school engaged in their Link Crew activities and those orientation pieces. And then the first full day for everybody is the Tuesday after Labor Day, and we'll be off and running for the fall. It's
Well,
hard to
do high
believe,
school
but-
students come in the same day as the 9th grade students, and when transferring them?
We used to. I don't know, do we do all new students with Link Crew?
If
Or
they're
is it
just
just
in
the
12th grade, we schedule a different time in the afternoon when we're done with Link orientation, but we have Link leaders who are available to take them on tour.
But they have a time they can come in and get themselves
Absolutely.
acclimated to it.
Yeah,
Okay,
anybody new to district.
good, thank
Yeah.
you.
What is the expectations for the staff for open houses?
The expectations
Yeah.
for staff?
Are they
It's different
required
by
to be
building, but yeah,
there?
they're required to be here, and they typically are welcoming families into their rooms, they're meeting, I know we have parent meetings, different times, but a lot of it is just, being there to greet families and greet students, and if there's any questions and that sort of thing, but yeah, they are required to be there.
Okay. Anything else? Questions?
I'm gonna put on my Tomahawk Historical Society hat and just invite, I had mentioned to Wendell, but the Historical Society would be open, we could open like that Thursday afterwards if any of the teachers wanna come and tour the school. We'll have special hours, we're doing certain things for the public, that they can come back and see what the very first kindergarten looked like, that very first building. There's a time capsule set up in there that was dug up at the school, it had been in there for 25 years. And so there's pictures from back when that are up in there. So I'll get that information to you and probably have it set outside the auditorium and do that.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? Okay, next agenda item is consideration for approval of graduation requirements or change to them. Any comment there, Wendell?
This is just updating our policy to meet the change that we made in a previous board meeting to our graduation requirements. performance, so just matching the language and the 23 credits.
Okay. And then entertain a motion to approve the change to policy 5460.
I so do, move.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion is second to approve the changes to policy 5460 as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Annual seclusion and restraint report.
The seclusion and restraint report for this year is attached. We're required to report to the board every year. Pretty low numbers compared to previously. If you don't know what the terminology is, or seclusion is when you prevent somebody from entering or leaving a space and you physically block them. And so you're preventing them from going they want to. And a restraint is when you have to place hands on somebody who is a danger to themselves or others physically to protect them. And so we're required to there's a reporting process. So we report that out to you annually so you know. And that's what it is, none at the middle school and high school and a few at the elementary. Questions?
Any questions? Okay.
All right.
Discussion on proposal to restructure board representation. Okay.
Yes, I'm gonna just bring a little bit of history here. This had been brought up way back in 2015, but timeline, there's a historical timeline that goes along that Ken Schultz had put together back in 2015 when he was looking at restructuring the board. But in '62 is when the city of Tomahawk and the Nokomis and that, there was a resolution to bring the schools together. Through the '60s, things changed a little bit as the schools closed and opened and all sorts of things changed around. But our present system of apportionment for the board has been in place since 1972, meaning that we've had 4 representatives from the city, 3 from the town of Bradley area, Bradley, Scanawan, Rock Falls, that area. 3. I lost my numbers now. 1 from King and Harrison, 1 from Nokomis. That it's been that way for 50 years. And the population has shifted over the last 50 years. When I looked at and pulled the numbers together and I met with Ken, he had pulled this out. There's been a lot of changes that went on. Back in 2015, when he brought the petition up, Ken brought the petition up. His petition was to change it to reduce the board down to 7 members and having it large. That didn't go over. Sherry Hafman and I were the only ones on the board at that time. But with the shift in population, that there's more people up in the Nokomis area, Wilson area, looking at the representation, I think we need to look at the structure of how the whole process goes. And there's a process to do it with a petition and that, and it's presented before the annual meeting. But I just wanted to bring it here for you to understand what this is all about. Currently, right now, the town of Birch, which has 2 people in it, and that was something that was apportioned back in '91. The town of Birch, Bradley, Scanawan, Tomahawk, and only 1 ward of Rock Falls represents 33% of our school district. The city of Tomahawk represents 33%. Right now, we have 4 board members on that are from the city of Tomahawk and 3 from the town of Bradley. I haven't spoken for. You know, just trying to even those numbers out. When we look at King and Harrison, that represents 12% of our district population, and the town of Nokomis, Little Rice, and Wilson represents 20%. What we're looking at with this stuff, city of Tomahawk 33, the other one 33, King is 12, and the third one is 21%. If you take all 4 of those, divide that up, you've got 33%. For the different sections, if you combine King and Harrison and Nokomis, Wilson and Little Rice. Just looking at shifting some of it around, because right now we have it set up that you have 2 representatives from the city of Tomahawk one year, 2 the next year, and sometimes filling those positions are hard, that you see many that are unopposed. There's 2 proposals that are coming before, just presenting this. One would be going from 9 members apportioned for geographical parts of the district to 6 members for the geographical parts. That being 2 for the city of Tomahawk, 2 for Bradley, Bradley, Scano, and Tomahawk, etc. And then one for King and one for Nokomis, and then 3 at large. Or the other one would be having 3 representatives for the city, 3 for the Birch, Bradley, etc. And then combine Nokomis, Wilson, Little Rice, King, and Harrison as one area and have 3 people for that. I've outlined this in a program, and I just wanted to bring it to the board so you could look at this and see if there's any questions, discussions, thoughts on it. Basically, from 1960 to 2020, when you look at the populations, the shift from that Birch, Bradley area, I shouldn't even put Birch in there with the 2 people out there, but it went from 30% up to 33%. The city of Tomahawk has gone from 49% of the school district population down to 33%. So having that many representatives from the city of Tomahawk just doesn't make it equalized. And so,
Okay.
I think we really need to evaluate that. I started looking at schools having it at large. There's a certain percentage of school boards that have by apportionment, a certain amount that have it at large. There's more school districts our size that have it at large. And then there are some that have the combination, some apportioned and some at large. So 2 options, having 6 members represent apportionments with 3 at large, or having 9 positions at apportionment.
Okay.
I did a diagram in case you want to look at that.
Wendell, your points I think are well taken, Kay. Does WSB have a consultant that could come in and formalize a recommendation for the board? I think it would be important to have an outside expert, I'll use that word, an outside consultant, come in and look at our demographic and all the things, I mean, I'm believing everything you said, and validate all of that and come up with a recommendation, because I think this is a very important decision that we would make as a board, if we would be, how we are structured, and then whether we're at large or whether we have representatives. I think it's time that, I would recommend that we do that. I think it's time that we formally entertain that and bring someone in to help us objectively go through that, because it could be very emotional in many different ways. And I would like to think that, what we recommend has been put together, not that we have to agree with what that person decides to do or that organization decides to do, but I think it would add a lot of credibility to the changes that we would make.
There is somebody, Dick, available. I called and talked to Ben from WASB, and he could only give me brief information, because until the board acts on it, that's when we can contact him.
I'd like to understand what prompted this whole discussion.
This went back to 2015 when we were looking at.
What prompted it?
It's been on the back burner for a long time.
What do we hope to gain by
What are
these
we,
changes?
exactly, what are we hoping to
It's
gain?
just that it's spread out more evenly, because having 4 representatives from the city when it only represents 33%
I
of
understand that, but you don't get a lot of people beating the doors down to run.
No, but
And I'm not sure if you're gonna get people saying, okay, I'm in this district, so I'm gonna run for this.
well, that's
I
why.
hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was proposing at large.
I
having
just
some
don't
at
see
large,
where we're
because
gonna
there's
get any advantage to this.
There's been people out there who wanted to go, but they see the position filled, but they can't fill it because there's somebody already in that position. That's why I was proposing the one option of having it at large.
I think that we should develop a committee to discuss this further as to whether or not we want to go down this road. I think it's a very big subject. I don't think it's one that we should take lightly. I agree with you, we need an outside source, but I don't agree with, something of this nature coming from one board member. I believe that it needs to be coming from a committee in the right way.
There's a process to go through that. There's a petition to be filed and all that type of thing, and it comes before the annual board. So I just wanted to bring this to the board for you to start thinking about.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Do it start it with a small committee,
Correct.
and Kay, I'd ask you to lead that committee and maybe get 2 other board members. If anyone's interested, contact Kay. Nobody contacts you, you contact them, tell them they're on it,
Okay,
okay? And if they don't, contact me.
okay, I'll do that. I got your number.
I'll
It
tell
also
them.
depends upon the time commitment too,
Yeah.
so just because,
I know, but it's,
We're not trying to accomplish this before this year's
right,
annual
I
board
hope
meeting.
not.
No, this is something I'm just bringing to light so you can start thinking about it because it has to be presented at the annual meeting.
It has
It's the
been
only time.
presented previously.
It has been, and that was back in 2015 when that came
Yeah.
forward.
I might add, if we should go from 9 members to 7,
That was what was proposed back in 2015.
and I think that would be a part of the discussion.
Okay.
When
We
is
had
your
9
group?
members, I hope I quote Mr. Powell correctly, but he was very, very strong in the idea that every township should have a representative, because that's what we are as a unified district. And that makes good sense, but with the population shifts that we've had, if we were to go at large, it really doesn't matter whether we have 7 or, I say that's not correct. What I want to say is, having 7 board members may be efficient and representative of the communities that we represent, and not need the 9 because of the shifts in demographic.
Well,
You know, and there's some school boards that have gone, now they're going back to apportionment because they have schools located in the different
Right.
townships where 1980, since 1980, it's been 40 years, we have one location. So it's not like I want to protect my school out in Scanaway or my school up in Bradley or things like that. You know, so you've got everybody voting for the same members and voting for working on the same school.
well, I would,
And I-
I would volunteer to be part of that committee.
Okay.
So.
and, yeah, I think it'd be started at that point and then move forward from there. I mean, Kay's presented it to myself and Wendell, and I have some opinions on it too. But let's see what comes out of it, and then we'll go from there. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Kay?
No.
All righty. Preliminary budget for 23-24?
Okay, so we went through this in detail in committee yesterday, Finance and Operations Committee. So I'll highlight some key parts. Again, I want to make sure we reiterate that this is a preliminary budget, meaning we don't know where our state numbers are at exactly yet until mid-October. So once those numbers are finalized, we will be able to finalize the budget. But in the meantime, this is the budget, or what if this budget is approved, it would be used to pull together the information for our annual meeting next month in September. So a couple things to highlight, and I have this attached on the board agenda for you. If you pull it up, so moving through it, you'll see that right off the top, if you look in the second section there, revenues and other financial sources, you will see that our local revenues, so our taxes, student fees, our interest, all of that stuff is significantly less than what it was a year ago. So that would be really what we would be going to the taxpayers and asking for, would be a number that was much less. So hold on to that for a second, because I'll pull that together at the end. If you jump down to expenditures and other financial uses, and you look at the total expenditures in that category, you'll see that that number is a little bit higher, roughly $400,000 higher. That is to cover the raises that were given district-wide, so the staff raises that were approved for the 23-24 school year. So that's why you see a little bit of an increase there. There's no other real increases in terms of additions or that sort of thing. Moving down towards the bottom, the other thing that I would highlight is if you look at food service. Well, above that, let's look at capital projects fund 2. So our Fund 46 right now, and that's primarily what that category is talking about. Fund 46 is what we utilize in the 40s. So right now we've got just over 1.5 million that we've been able to contribute over the past few years. Now that we're able to access that account, strictly dedicated to capital projects within, maintenance projects within our district that are approved on the list. You'll see that we we're planning to spend that down a little bit. ESSER funds will not be available to us next year, so we put an expenditure of about $500,000 out of that account to cover any capital costs that we have next year. Food service fund, which is the next one down. If you look at the ending fund balance for our food service account, that fund balance has grown over the years. It started with COVID, the different funding sources, and the way that meals worked out. We ended up acquiring a pretty hefty fund balance. The state has rules on what we can carry in that account, and we're over that amount. So what we've been trying to do with that money is to spend it either investing in equipment to better our kitchen, our food service equipment that desperately needs to be upgraded. So this year we added a dishwasher and possibly some other things, but we've also been slowly spending that down by this last year and then coming up in our next year with our food service contract, ensuring that our students and families don't see raises or increases in costs of meals throughout our district. So that's what we've been dedicating those dollars to. So you'll see the ending fund balance, you'll see a pretty significant amount of money that will be utilized and sent forth to that. On the back page, one thing I want to highlight to start out with is the Community Service Fund, Fund 80. You'll see there's an increase in that. One of the goals with our strategic plan, one of the things that we've heard from our community and our stakeholders in our community, especially as we went through the strategic planning process, is we want better access and more access to the facilities in this building and the different resources and different things that we offer. So there's an increase in some money in that community fund, but it's primarily to cover the costs of pulling together the plans and the resources we need to make those offerings come to fruition and be available to our community. So I will update you more on some of those plans at the September meeting, but for right now, you know, just so you know, there will be an increase in that. Then dropping down to our total expenditures on that page. You'll see that our total expenditures are a little bit higher than what they were last year, but there's two main things that are primarily driving that in that category. The first is the $500 or $500,000 expenditure in Fund 46. That's included in there. And the second one that you'll see is that $400,000. That's the staff that went to compensation package for all staff across the district. So that compensates for most of that. But then when you drop down to the very bottom, so if you look on the left-hand side, there's three bolded items. The third one up on the left says total school levy. Okay, total school levy last year was $14,083,373. The total levy in this proposed budget is $13,517,048. So that's 4% less than what we asked for last year. So we have in this budget the opportunity to invest in our district in some very meaningful ways, but we're also bringing a much lower, to the tune of $566,000, just over that number, of a tax levy to our community. There's two main things that we can attribute our ability to do that. One is the fact that we saw some changes from the state level. The low revenue ceiling was raised to $11,000 per student. That, if our enrollment holds steady, will increase our revenues, if we levied for it, by $1.2 million. Okay, so that's a significant amount. The other one that we see is that increase of around, we had 78% increase in our equalization aid. And again, anytime talking about equalization aid, I make sure that I mention that's not a check that's cut to a district or spendable dollars. Equalization aid comes in the form of a supplement to the tax levy. So it comes in the form of tax relief to offset the amount of money that our stakeholders have, would pay throughout the levy. So those two things combined put us in not only a position where we have the money in our district to make some investments and some improvements, but it also lets us come in about almost, just under $600,000 less in our tax levy than what we did last year. On top of that, and this is the thing that I think Sandy and I, as we went through this budget and tried to, cross every T and dot every I, we've worked with our financial planning institution with Baird to make sure that everything in this is accurate and where we're at. But we are going to do this, if this proposed budget is passed, by a total of $1.2 million under the levy authority that the district has for the 23-24 school year. So we could potentially levy for an additional $1.2 million. We are choosing to hold true to our promises, hold true to our community and the commitments that we made to tighten our belt and to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to ensure that taxes stay at a reasonable level. So the goal with this budget is to see taxes flatline from last year to this year and stay as close to possible as where they were without taking advantage of the opportunity just because the state has given us that permission. So, so that is, I feel a big deal. It's the first time, I think, in a very long time, maybe in school history, that we have under-levied and been in a position to under-levy. So, again, we do it, but we also do it with the opportunity to make some changes and some investments in our district. So we're in a really good place financially right now, and that's reflected in this budget, so.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
How did that, by chance, do you know how that played out over that 4-year plan? When we initially did the referendum?
So the 3-year, we did a 3-year?
3-year, sorry, yeah.
So,
Just high level,
how it played out as far as the
Yeah.
calculation and the
Yeah.
model, it puts us right in place where we were when we went through that before. So we still are, we see that initial surplus, that surplus a little bit higher because of where our insurance costs came in and where our interest payments have been at. But our insurance costs for the upcoming year were 0.5 point lower than last year, where we were anticipating somewhere between 10 and 15% increase. Now, that won't always be the case, but what we saw is a little bit of surplus, then a little bit less of a surplus, and then a deficit in that 3rd year. We'll probably be in the black all 3 years, but the surpluses still aren't that high, and that's why we're doing this. We're trying to keep, you know, rather than have a huge surplus at the end of the year that we're putting in fund balance, we're gonna give it back to the taxpayers.
Anyone else?
You know, I think we still should promote to the community too, that we are debt-free, and we're, what, less than 10% of the schools in the state are debt-free.
Correct.
That we've been fiscally responsible.
Okay. Excuse me, thank you. Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the preliminary 23-24 budget.
I so move. Scooball?
Second?
Second, Kaloo?
Okay, a motion is second to approve the preliminary budget for 23-24. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening?
I have something, if you don't, if no one there. I just want to take the time to thank Ryan Flynn for a great AD report. And keeping us informed of what's going on in the middle school and high school. Congratulate Jackie on her retirement. Those that we've had the pleasure to go in and work with her over the years. She's done amazing work, and we appreciate that. I also had the privilege to go to the Riddell Ranch over the 4th of July. And to be honest, I saw a group of kids out there working, and they weren't screwing around. And I asked the dumb question, where are those kids from? My wife says, Bob, those are from Tomahawk. That's members of our FCCLA. And they were working, they did a great job out there, they were great ambassadors. I'm very proud to say they're from Tomahawk. So thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Any board referrals?
I just,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, last night CISA 9 had their annual convention, and they released their new scorecard, and they achieved the highest marks they've ever gotten. They had a 4.85 out of a 5 possible. And they also attained national ranking, which is in the upper 95 percentile nationally on 5 different disciplines, like accuracy, timeliness, operational, that sort of thing. And also might mention that Al Betry, the administrator for CISA 9, was approached by Tom McCarthy, who's the, let me think here, the executive director of the office of the state superintendent. Asked Al Betry if he would serve on a committee of 3 for the state communication committee, and it's like what's working and what's not. And Al's accepted, and he's gonna serve in that capacity as well. But great group of people over there. Just thought I'd let everyone know, and they will be passing on the scorecards to you as well.
Good, great. Anything else? Okay, hearing none. Anything else we need to discuss? Okay, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. Thanks, Wendell.
Yeah.